And from music and entertainment to matters lifestyle, now our center of conversation this Thursday morning is personal and community leadership. So basically, what are individuals doing in their own capacity as leaders when it comes to giving back to the community or society as a whole? Titus, Kuria, the executive director and co-founder of Canada-Mathare Education Trust, that is CME Trust, is my guest this morning and will be helping us unpack all of that. Titus, karibu to the program.
Asante sana, thank you for having me.
Well, you grew up in Mathare, born there. How was life growing up?
Growing in Mathare was very challenging. Like any other slum, it has a lot of challenges around, harassment from the police, lack of basic needs like food. The shelter was not the best. When it rains there, it's a challenge because most of the roof is old and all that. Accessing good health was a challenge, but also, getting school fees and going to school was also a big challenge. So many challenges. But at the same time, Mathare is a good community. It's a beautiful community. People love each other. People support each other, especially during grief, especially during when the fire comes around.
It's like one big family.
It's one big family. So people are always willing to come and support each other. So despite all these challenges, I still love this community. I have learned a lot. It has given me a lot, and it has defined the person I am today.
I don't know, there's something about always having a push and pull with the police. I mean, when you listen to a lot of stories of people coming from the slum areas, they will always tell you, manze karao, polisi, awatutakiangi. What is the problem?
Yeah, I've been a victim of police brutality. I've grown in a place called Manoki, and Manoki used to be a lot of young people would come and sit down and talk about life, about issues, about, politics, current affairs. And police would just come there and harass us, kick us around, sometimes arrest us without any reason. But at the same time, when I was younger, maybe around 13, 14, I lost like 2 of my teammates. I used to play football in a club called Roots. And we used to play with these young men, but they were shot down by police because they were snatching jewelry. That time we did not have phones, so they were just snatching jewelry and small stuff like wallets and all that. But about 20, 30 years later, we still have the same issue. For the last 2 months, we have about 14 young men from Mathare who have been gunned down by the police. So when I say it's a big challenge, I would say it's a big challenge because we are still losing young people. We are still being harassed by the police. But at the same time, we also need to look at the root causes of why this is happening. There's a lot of poverty. There's a lot of systematic oppression and discrimination from every successive government has not been supporting the slums. They have not been providing opportunities for young people to practice their potential, to also practice their talents, to explore things. That's why they end up stealing. That's why they end up joining gangs. And that's why they end up getting gunned down by police.
But can we say it's because the government is not doing, that's why they are ending up? Are we in a way like sort of justifying what most of these young people will do? Yes, we're not for police brutality. It's very wrong. But when we say it's because the government is not doing this, that is why they are doing that. So is it in a way sort of like justifying?
No, it's you have to look at, it's a complex problem. So you have to look at the root causes. One of the root causes is lack of job opportunities, lack of education opportunities. So this young person from Mathare, they want to work. They want to earn a good living, but unfortunately, they don't have the right papers. They don't have the right skills. So what will they do? They can only go maybe to Mjengo site, but not everyone can, belong into that kind of job. So without these opportunities, for example, there are only 2 public schools in Mathare. How do you expect all this population of about 500,000 to share those resources? There's no like government clinic or field. The field that most of when I grew up, playing is no longer accessible to the community because it belongs to the government. So we don't have a public space where young people can explore their talents. So this is what I'm saying is called systematic oppression and discrimination. So after a while, the only thing that people can do is either sell changa, which is very popular, it's our cash crop in Mathare, or steal. But I'm not just saying that that's the only issue. There are other issues around peer pressure. There are other issues about lack of positive role models. There are issues around, what is happening. People want the fast life, the Instagram, the TikToks. So if you see someone with a nice phone, you also need to have a nice phone. If someone has a girlfriend, you also need to have a girlfriend, and you need to treat the girlfriend, you need to take care of her. So it's a big problem, but one of the issues is around, giving young people opportunities. Is the government doing enough? They're trying, but they need to do more.
So I mean, there's still some loopholes and gaps that need to be catered for and filled.
For sure.
You said that you're a victim of police brutality.
Yeah.
So you have a story.
Well, I've been arrested enough times. That's one.
Which one is the one that you actually remember and you're like, "Ai, mulinionea sana"?
No, I used to have dreads. I used to have dreads, and when I used to have dread, it was the time that dreads were not very sexy like now, and you'd be considered mungiki or a bad person in that regard. So one day I was going to work. I think this is in 2007 when the election fever for that time was very high, and mungiki was roaming around causing mayhem. So I was just going to work. I used to be a web designer, so I was working in Westlands. So I was in a matatu stage. They picked me up with my friend. Just like that? Just like that. And they put me in the boot of a Probox. And it had to get, my boss had to call them and plead with them and tell them that he's expecting me in my workstation. And that's how I got away. So imagine if I did not have anyone else to come and bail me out, what would have happened? People used to disappear. In my community, I remember there's a time, there was a raid, an area called Kosovo, and everyone with dreadlocks was arrested. That's still in Mathare? Yes, was beaten up, and even some of them were pulling down the hair. Ooh. So, yeah, things are changing for the better. Now when I see people with dreadlocks and they're looking good and it's more fashionable to have it, I appreciate that. But that time, it was a problem. And no one can castigate you because of having it? Yeah, now it's more like people appreciate it more. That time it was a problem. But again, it's just the spirit to be different, to start things, to set trends. We always used to be different. I used to be different, and I have some friends that we grew up together, and we always try to do something different. And that time, our difference could have been a problem. But again, we soldier on and we continue with what you're doing. Yeah. You have mentioned a myriad of challenges from that area growing up in Mathare, and it's still happening. And when we think, or when someone talk about the slum areas, those are the first things that come to mind, to an extent whereby we always think there's nothing good that can come out of these places. It's like a mindset. But you are here. You've made it. You're going back to help there. What is the exciting thing you remember about growing up in Mathare? There's a lot of things. I grew up playing football. Those were, whenever I'm in the pitch, even now I play, but I'm a bit old. But anyway, one of my escape was playing football, because without that, I would be like many other people using drugs, alcohol. So we used to escape through that. And I became a leader, I became a captain when I was about 13 years. So I was leading my team, organizing everything, making sure like the uniform, making sure that everyone knows when the match is on, what time, where they need to be. And that was my first stage where I started learning about leadership. And throughout the years, I've been in different youth groups, different associations, organizations, learning to be a leader, learning to lead myself and also others around me, and also learning to be a good representative of our community. So There are so many highlights I would mention.
Yeah.
One of them is just what I said, becoming a captain of my team, taking leadership roles in different organizations that I've been a committee member, I've been a treasurer, I've been a coordinator in different groups that I was involved in. So those are some of the highlights. And I would say they have really shaped the person I am today. Yes.
I felt it was important for me to ask that question because just like I said, we have formed like a notion. It's like an analogy that honestly nothing good can come out of this place. But like I said, you are here.
Yes.
And you're something good that came out of that from Mathare.
Yeah, so I would say I'm one of the lucky few, if you'd like to say. And when we were growing up, we did not have positive role models like myself. If I consider myself that one, or if people consider myself a positive role model. The role models we had were, you know, gang members, drug peddlers. Those are the people who are popular in the community. They would get all the girls. They would have all the fancy clothing. So a lot of people would choose them and their lifestyle. And that's how a lot of people ended up in crime. So we chose to be different. In our group, it's called Roots, Mathare Roots. We chose to be different when we were young. We chose to be different, to do something different. And it was a challenge. We got a lot of backlash from the community. A lot of people never understood us. And we had friends from different parts of the world coming. We invited friends from Canada, from Australia, from all these parts of the world to come and support what we were doing. And during that time, people would say negative things like, oh, wanatembea na wazungu, oh, this. So they would criticize us. But after a while, you know, 20, 15 years later, now they can see the result of trying to be different, changing your mindset. It's not very easy. We used to spend our Sundays in town, in Uhuru Park. There's a market called Freemart. We used to go there and spend the whole day there because we just wanted to escape from the community. And this is money we have saved from Monday to Saturday. You know, we used to do odd things to get money, and then we'd go and we'd spend time we'd go in town, KICC, all these places, take photos, and just when you go back, you have a different mindset. If there was a walk in Karura and we saw it somewhere, we would just go and participate in that walk. Sometimes you don't even know what is happening in this walk, what is the reason. But during that time, that's where you meet other people, you exchange ideas. We have done things in village market, we have participated in Halloween, maybe 20 years ago. Even today, when you talk about Halloween in Kenya, many people don't know what it is. But we have been in those spaces trying to do something different. And through that, we hope that even the young people that we are mentoring today, they can also follow that path.
And you see, that's why when earlier on we were talking about maybe what the government can do, different stakeholders, I was really trying to sort of like make that notion of we should not so much heavily rely on the government. There's just so much they can do because you see, like in your case, you decided, you made a choice. Every weekend, I'll be going to Uhuru Park. What does that do to you? It exposes you. And you now start thinking different, looking at life differently, and becoming a different person altogether.
True.
Let's talk about Canada-Mathare Education Trust. What it's all about, when it began, what are the aims?
So Canada-Mathare Education Trust began 15 years ago, 2006 to be exact. And we are here to support young people who are high achieving, low income to access high school education and post-secondary education. And during that time, we also offer them opportunity to be leaders. So during the holidays, other than the scholarships, we also provide a whole week whereby they come in and they have facilitators. Like yourself, you come and talk about your journey, your, you know, how you made hard decisions to be where you are today. Something that can add value to them and they can learn, they can expose them to something different. So we do that, and then at the tail end of that week, they normally do a community outreach program. It could be a cleanup, a home visit, it could be a tree planting. They have to organize it. Again, this is very important to CME Trust because we have that philosophy of giving back. When people talk about giving back, they always think of building an orphanage or building a school. But what people forget is that you can always start small. What do you have right now? You have time. Yes, you're young, you don't have a lot of resources. Is your environment clean? Can you plant a tree or two? Can you go to a children's home and play with the kids? You know, cook for them, wash for them. Those are the small things we try to inculcate in our scholars. So as much as it's a scholarship program, it's also a leadership program. Yes.
And you do this only in Mathare community?
For now, we focus in Mathare, simply because that's where we started. That's where we did our baseline, and we have barely touched the surface. Mathare is huge.
Even after 15 years, so it means there's a lot to do.
There's a lot to do, because when you look at the amount of applications we get every year, they range from 200 to 300 every year. And sometimes we have 20 to 30 slots. So you can imagine 170 kids cannot get into the program. So that means always there are people who are left behind. And it's a concern for me, and it's a concern for CME trusts. And that's why I come in and say, I challenge even Kenyan foundations and organizations and the government to make sure that some of these programs are supported. And even if these programs are there, we need more opportunities for the young people. And just like I said, what happens to the 170 that we leave out of the program? Those are some of the young people that have been gunned down. Yes.
So when it comes to this assistance, giving back or helping all together, and you've talked about the figures and numbers, do you go about handpicking, choosing, do they apply? Because I mean, when you talk about needy, and when you look at the community itself, and also from what you've given us in terms of background, we could safely say that almost everyone is needy.
True. I like that question. The criteria is there. It's set, and the beautiful thing, you're asking that question at the right time. Tomorrow we are launching 2022 applications. So we normally have a criteria whereby you have to have high marks. So the entry point for this year is 355 marks in KCP. You have to have sat your KCP at a school in Mathare. You have to be a resident of Mathare. You have to be willing to go away from home. We take our kids to national and extra county schools, the Masenos, the Panganis. So you have to be willing to be able to survive in a different environment. And the reason we do that is to provide them with ample learning environment for them to focus on education, but also for them to explore a different culture and learn how to coexist with different people. And when they come back to Mathare, they have a different mindset. And then the other thing that we look at, is it a young person who is proud to be from the community? What are they willing to do for this community with their education? It's a bit, we're just looking at 10 years from now. If you graduate from university, you get a job. How will this education help you and help the community? So those are some of the things that we look at. And the last thing we look at is, can you continue your education without us? If the answer is no, we'll certainly take you in our program.
Because again, also that's a very big factor.
And then the forms are there in our office. They are free of charge. You come and you fill them up, and then we do our shortlisting. Then we have interviews. After the interviews, then we send all these names and we discuss with our board in Canada. Once the board approves, then we take in these scholars. And once you enter our first year, you are guaranteed for 8 years support. That is the scholarship. You have computer training when you finish high school, and then we also support you through university.
So it's actually an entire process.
Yes.
You know, you just don't go and say, wewe kuja ingia kwa program.
No. We have to do it the right way, so that actually we want to get the right minds, the right people, because we believe once you educate one kid in one family, it can change that family. Once you change that family, it changes the community. Once we change the community, even the country will be a beneficiary. Yes.
So it's a ripple effect and a positive one. So
yes, and that's the catalyst to change the cycle of poverty. Yes.
Again, the issues are many.
Yes.
You've mentioned poverty.
Yes.
Poor houses, poor structures. So clearly it just shows you could have picked on one of these issues, but you settled on education. This is what I want to do as it pertains to supporting my community. Why education? What is so peculiar about it?
I started volunteering when I was very young. I've done this for about 25 years now, community service. And while I was doing that, together with some of my friends, we were working with an informal school, a community school in Mathare called Msedo. And we are supporting them in terms of bringing teaching materials, bringing volunteers, bringing stationery and all these things. So during that time, we got a network of interns from the United Nations Environmental Program. So they used to come and volunteer every Friday because at the UN they finish their job at noon. So the rest of the afternoon they are free. So they used to come and volunteer. And during that time, they had a consultant. A consultant is much higher position, who used to hear every Monday that we went to Mathare and we did enjoy having fun with the kids, teaching them English, art, and all this. So she's called Victoria Shepherd, and she came in to join the interns. So when she came in, she met us. So when I say us, I mean Charles, who is my co-founder, and Benedict, who was running the school. And when we sat down, she got a job to go back to Canada, in the government of Canada. She's a marine biologist. And then she said, how can I be involved in this community work? I enjoy what you guys are doing. I appreciate, but I'll be far away. What can we do together? So we did our research, our baseline, and we looked at what you are talking about. The sewage system was bad. So that means hygiene was bad, environment was bad, health hazard. There was a lot of crime, drugs, alcohol. But we said, what is one problem that if we solve can cure most of these things? And we settled on education. But we did not just say education, we focused on high school education. Remember in 2002, the former president Mwai Kibaki declared free primary education.
Yes.
So there was a number of young people from Mathare who could go now to primary school, but they could not access high school education. Myself, I had a lot of challenges accessing high school education. It was very expensive. It still is very expensive to take a kid to a good school in Kenya. So that's how we settled on high school education. But 4-5 years later, we realized these kids are graduating from high school. So what do you do about that? They will not get a job with a KCSE certificate, a decent job. So they are not fulfilling their potential. That's how we started our post-secondary scholarship program. Now we are supporting them through university. We have about 30 in different universities, and 20 of them have already graduated. So in total, we have about 50 scholars who have accessed post-secondary institutions in different parts of the country. And we continue growing like that. So still we are pushing and saying education is still a big problem. It has been changing. There are many things that need to be done. It's not like when we started, but there's still that need to be done. Yes.
Well said, and obviously again well explained why education is necessary and very important.
Yes.
But 15 years down the line, you still said there's a lot to fill in terms of gaps. There's still some loopholes here and there. But again also, we cannot say that there hasn't been gains made in this entire 15 years.
Yes.
What are those?
So, like I said, when I was 13, 14, I lost 2 of my teammates. Again, because they did not have any hopes. The only hope they had is to snatch for them to survive for that day. But when we started our scholarship, when you compare our scholars, we have about 250 scholars who have gone through the program. When you compare them and you compare with people who never got the opportunity to join our program, you could see the difference. Our scholars, even if they have graduated and they don't have a job, they're still optimistic that they're going to get a job. IBC, when they roll out the registration, our scholars apply, they get this opportunity. So they have skills that gives them hopes for a better tomorrow. When you look at whatever they are doing, they are volunteering in different organizations. They are teachers in the community. They are, when these organizations want to do research, these are the people that they reach out to. So you see there's a difference. What I'm trying to say is that as much as we have been doing this work, which is very important, and it has made change, and it can show that we have really succeeded, there are still gaps, and we need to work on that gaps. I've been doing research recently, also to look at the difference between the boys and the girls in terms of achieving their potential. We have realized also our boys are achieving their potential much higher as compared to our girls, despite also giving them similar opportunities. So we also need to constantly interrogate whatever we are doing and improve it. So what is causing these girls not to achieve their greatest potential? Even if they have opportunities, you realize there are issues around economical, the issues around patriarchy society, the issues around culture, religion, and even the way the girls are socialized. You realize they are taught, wewe kazi yako ni kupika, kuosha, you know. So when the boys are going out, they are chased away, enda uko, go and spend time with other men. The girls are being told, sit at home. Even if you have a degree and your mother and your father keeps on telling you to sit at home while your brother is being given the leeway to go out there, then you realize after a certain time, your brother will be more successful than the girl. But we are working as an organization, working with partners, working with other actors in our community, locally and international, to make sure that we fill all these gaps. Again, there's issues to do with people with disabilities, people with other conditions like albinism. Have we factored them in our programs? Not yet, but those are some of the areas we are looking at and to continue improving. And in the next 5 years, we hope to close some of those gaps.
Well said. Listening to you speak and talking about the difference between boys and girls and the challenges thereof, sort of like boys still have an upper hand, it makes me think of the different conversations that have been going around. Also, again, knowing fully well that you are very much involved when it comes to maximizing of potential. You also have a program in respect to that. But then there are some that are saying we have empowered girls so much at the expense of boys. So when I hear you say that there's still some loopholes in loopholes presented and gaps that girls still face and boys still have an upper hand, where are we when it comes to that empowering beat and maximizing of potential?
Well, change takes time. Change is a process. It requires more resources. So whatever we are doing for the girls, we need to keep on doing it.
Okay.
Is it enough? No.
Not at the expense of the boys?
You don't do it at the expense of the boys.
Okay.
What you do, you look at what do the boys need and also what do the girls need. Example, for our program, we have been doing equal opportunities. So we give the girls and the boys same opportunities. But what we've realized, as a girl, you have different needs to me.
Yes.
So I have to interrogate what are your needs and then cater to your needs exactly for you to fulfill your greatest potential. So if you have a brother and he's given 5,000 pocket money and you're also given 5,000, you realize when you go to shop, he'll only spend maybe 2,000, but you might need even 6,000, 7,000.
So it's not enough.
So again, you see, this causes now girls to look for other opportunities. Alternative opportunities to get money. So you need to look at this, and that's how you realize, as much as people are talking about we're empowering girls, they also need to look at, are we giving them what they need, or are we assuming that whatever we are giving them is enough? So in our programming, we constantly talk to our beneficiaries. We ask them, how can we improve? You know, we want to know what are we missing. We want to bring in experts, consultants who can help us to make sure that the resources that we have are used to the best possible impact. And that's how we work. So
it's a concerted effort, not just you giving and giving back because you are in that space, but also for them that you're giving to, what do they need?
Yeah, that's very important. And what we have realized even over the years is that many programs, even from the government, from non-governmental organizations, have failed in our community simply because you bring a program with a lot of resources, but you don't really understand what these people need. So for us, we talk to our parents, we talk to our scholars, we talk to the community, we talk to the teachers, to other stakeholders, even the schools that they go to. We talk to them to analyze what do our scholars really need, because our scholarship is centered around this scholar. How can they achieve their greatest potential? For us is to provide that opportunity, that environment, and the resources that are required.
All right. Speaking of resources, there's always an issue or a problem surrounding funding. And most organizations, whether CBOs, NGOs, or even an individual altogether, that is always a challenge. When it comes to you and CME Trust, how are you going about the question of funding? Because again, sustainability and giving back and helping really needs to, you need to ensure that there's this in place for it to continue being sustainable.
Yeah. So for the last 15 years, we have been receiving money from Canada, from the people of Canada. And we are very grateful for standing with us, being in solidarity with the community of Mathare. It has not been easy to fundraise. We have an amazing board. We have an amazing team of volunteers in Canada. But what Kenyans need to know, these young people that we are educating are going to benefit this country. They are going to be working here. They are going to be sharing their skills, their talents in this country. We have tried to fundraise in Kenya. It has been very difficult. We have been very lucky. We have received a funding, a huge funding from Global Affairs Canada. That is the equivalent of USAID, and it's going to last for the next 5 years. Unfortunately or fortunately, this funding is only going to the girls' education, purely girls' education. Remember, CME Trust is an equal provider. We provide opportunities for both boys and girls. So my role as the executive director is to fundraise for the boys. It's a bit awkward because always people fundraise for the girls. So I'm fundraising for the boys. Because the girls,
at the expense of the boys.
Yeah, the girls are taken care of. But again, this falls in line with the Canadian feminism policy. The Canadian government have a policy in place to support women all over the world. We are the beneficiary of that funding, of that support. But we don't want to leave the boys behind. So my work as the leader of this organization, working with my team in Kenya, is to knock on people's doors, to tell them, we need support for our boys. We need support to make sure that we don't just have girls who are educated, but we also have boys who are educated, who can marry them and they can bring up beautiful, healthy families.
Lastly, as we bring this conversation to a close, what is your greatest motivation? What really pushes you? Because going from when we begin this conversation, clearly there's loopholes, there's gaps, there's a lot of challenges. Funding is not missing on those issues. But what really pushes you?
For me, what pushed me is that I always, my older brothers and sisters who got successful, most of them moved out of the community. And they thought, because of what I talked about, harassment, all these issues. And then we are the generation that said, no, we are going to make people want to move to Mathare. We want to make Mathare a positive place. We want people to be proud of being called someone from Mathare. These days you see young people who are younger than us wearing t-shirts called Made in Mathare. They're very proud of where they're coming from because some of us decided to shift their mindset, the narrative. So what wakes me up very early in the morning is the promise of the youth. I want every young person not to go through the hardship that I went through, to have a smoother life, to have a better life. I believe they can achieve more than I can. The only thing I can do is to provide that support, those opportunities, share my networks, my skills and experiences, and bring this person to really fulfill their greatest potential. And when they do that, they motivate me to go out there and do it again and again and again.
Well said. That's a good place to end it. Clearly just showing that there's what you can always do in your individual capacity to help. Doesn't have to be much, but there's something you can do.
I agree.
Good place to end it. And I have been speaking to Titus Kuria. He is the Executive Director and co-founder of Canada-Mathare Education Trust, talking to us about personal and community leadership, what you can do in your individual capacity to help community or the society at large. And this is where we end this conversation. And ultimately, good morning, Kenya. This Thursday morning, I'm Doreen Okello, and on behalf of the entire team, we say thank you so much for watching. Till next week, have a good morning.